Like, subscribe, and comment. Summon Tionk, Krampus, werewolves, and a zombie from the shadows to feed your nightmares.
In the forgotten corners of the Philippines, there exists a province excluded from every map, ignored by satellites, and spoken of only in hushed, trembling tones. They call it Lagim. If you were to ask where it lies, the answers would never align. Some swear it hides deep in the mountainous north. Others claim it sits rotting by the black waters of the eastern sea. But those who know the truth agree on one thing. You do not map a route to Lagim province. You simply end up there. At the dead center of Lagim stands an ancient, colossal balete tree. Its choked roots twist like skeletal claws buried deep in the weeping earth. The elders say its roots do not drink water, they drink fear. Sprouting outward from this heart of wood, 5 isolated villages, 5 sitios, sprawl like points on a sacrificial circle. Each village belongs to its own unique nightmare. In the village of Sitio Madilim, the dogs never bark at night. They spend the dark hours whimpering in their sleep, waking up hoarse and breathless, as if an invisible hand had been clamping their muzzles shut in the dark. One evening, a teenage girl named Lonnie hurried home through the encroaching twilight. Her pregnant mother's final warning echoed in her ears. "Be quick, Lonnie. The night's here. They are hungry for lives like ours." The sky above was the color of a fresh bruise. The moon hung thin, pale, and exhausted. As Lonnie took the dirt path cutting past the abandoned rice fields, a suffocating stillness settled over the valley. There were no farmers, no frogs, no wind. Yet the dry rice stalks suddenly shivered. Something unseen was brushing through them, parting the blades. Then came the sound from above. Flap, flap, flap. It was a slow, heavy, leathered beat. Lonnie's boots froze in the dirt. "Just a migratory bird," she whispered to the empty air, her voice cracking. She didn't believe it. Then came the second sound. Soft, wet, and sickeningly close, sliding straight into her ear canal. Tick, tick, tick. It sounded distant, like a clock ticking in an empty house down the road. But the sound wasn't coming from the fields. It was coming from the base of her neck. She remembered the old superstition the elders muttered around the kerosene lamps. If you hear the creatures click loudly, it is miles away. But if the click is faint, it is already breathing on your skin. The tick-tick was now a barely audible whisper inside her skull. Suddenly, the moonlight vanished, blocked out by a massive shape hovering directly overhead. Lonnie forced her eyes upward. At first, it looked like a torn sheet of raw flesh suspended in the air. Then it breathed. It was a manananggal. The creature's body ended violently at the waist, its lower half left behind in some dark thicket. Glistening, black entrails spilled from its severed torso, swinging beneath it like ropes of living slime. Its massive, bat-like wings stretched wide, leathery, trembling and beating the air with agonizingly slow strokes. Long, matted hair floated like web lines around a face dominated by eyes that burned with a rotten yellow hunger. Its jaw unhinged, dropping too wide, and a long, needle-thin tongue uncoiled, twitching blindly in the dark. The creature tilted its head. It sniffed the air. It wasn't smelling Lonnie. It was smelling the unborn life resting inside her mother's womb. "Mama!" Lonnie choked out, and she ran. The tick-tick stopped instantly. The silence that followed was terrifying. Lonnie burst through the door of their nipa hut, slamming the heavy wooden bolt into place. She lunged across the room, securing every window, sealing every crack in the bamboo walls. On the woven banig mat in the corner, her mother lay sweating, her hands gripped tightly over her swollen belly. "Lonnie, what is it? Don't speak," Lonnie gasped, her chest heaving. "Just don't listen. Please, don't listen." The flames of the small candles stretched thin and violent, as though the oxygen was being sucked from the room. The house felt frail, like fragile paper. The night pressed hard against the thatched walls, heavy and breathing. Then, thud, a soft, heavy impact vibrated through the roof. Gray dust drifted down from the ceiling like ash. "Did you hear that?" her mother whispered, her eyes wide with sudden panic. "No." Lonnie lied, her voice trembling. "You didn't hear anything." Above them, the sound of something wet and heavy began to drag itself across the thatch. Scrape, scrape, Then, a sickening, pooling sound. It wasn't outside anymore. It was directly above her mother's womb. The woven ceiling began to darken. A perfectly round stain spread through the fibers, thick, slow, and black as the creature's foul saliva seeped through. A sharp, needle-like point pushed through the ceiling. Once, twice, snaking downward. The tongue was searching. Instantly, every candle blew out. Total darkness. The roof split with a violent tearing sound, like sharp talons ripping open an old wound. Her mother's voice rose into a raw animal shriek, a howl of pure agony, and then cut off with a wet choke. The silence that followed felt alive. By the first light of dawn, the village midwife arrived. Lonnie's mother was still breathing, but barely. Her once proud belly had collapsed inward, loose, wrinkled, and entirely hollowed out. The midwife checked the sheets, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The Manananggal took the harvest, she whispered to herself, thinking Lonnie was out of earshot. It fed well before the sun rose. Lonnie didn't cry. She just stared up at the dried black stain on the ceiling. It smelled of copper, blood, and something far fouler than death. From that night on, the elders of Sitio Madilim shared a warning. The Manananggal does not always kill the mother. Sometimes it leaves her alive, just so she is forced to remember. To remember the slow drip from the ceiling, the sound of leather wings above the thatch, and just how deafeningly loud a house can be when there is a crib in the corner and nothing inside ever cries. And sometimes, just before the sun breaks over the horizon, the broken mothers swear they can hear a tiny voice calling out from the shadows beneath the floorboards. Soft, hungry, whispering, "Mama."
Episode 2, Sitio Sanggol, the Tiyanak that waits. In Sitio Sanggol, every house had its windows nailed shut, not to keep something from getting in, to stop themselves from opening them. Because everyone knew the rule: if you hear a baby crying outside at night, do not answer it. The elders said the sound could reach into your head, slip through your ears like a worm, and make your hands move before your mind could stop them. Most people obeyed. Joel laughed at the stories. A young tricycle driver, he believed in engines, gasoline, and money, not monsters. Ghosts don't pay for gas, he always said. One stormy night, Joel was driving home, long after midnight. Rain hammered the road so hard that his headlights became two blurry smears in a wall of water. The trees along the roadside bent and twisted in the wind. The dime rolled across the mountains. Then he heard it, a baby's cry. Wah. Joel frowned. The sound was faint, lost beneath the storm. Wah. This time, it sounded closer, too close, like it was sitting right beside him, in the sidecar. A chill crawled down his spine. He slowed his tricycle. The crying continued. Weak, helpless, desperate. He looked around. Nothing but darkness and rain. Then he reached the old bullet tree at the bend in the road. The crying stopped. Silence. Not even the rain seemed to make a sound anymore. Joel swallowed. Then, wah, the lay. The scream exploded from the roadside. He nearly crashed. His heart slammed against his ribs. There, illuminated by his headlights, was a baby, curled in the mud, tiny, naked, shivering. Its skin looked pale gray, like something that had never seen sunlight. No, Joel whispered. No mother, no father, no house nearby. Just a baby alone in the storm. His fear slowly turned into anger. What kind of monster would leave a child here? Joel killed the engine. The second the motor died, an unnatural stillness swallowed everything. Even the storm seemed distant. watching, waiting. He stepped out into the rain. The closer he got, the hotter his body became. Sweat ran down his face despite the freezing weather. His chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But the baby looked so helpless, so small, so vulnerable. He bent down and lifted it into his arms. The moment he touched it, his stomach dropped. It was far too heavy, like lifting a sack filled with wet stones. The baby's skin was ice cold, yet something beneath it seemed to twitch and crawl. Joel's hands trembled. "You're okay," he whispered. The crying stopped instantly. The baby became completely silent. Then its eyes opened. Joel froze. The eyes weren't the eyes of a child. There was almost no white, only two dark red irises staring directly into his soul, ancient, hungry, evil. The baby smiled. Its mouth stretched wider, 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 until its cheeks cracked. Rows of needle-like teeth filled its gums. Dozens. Hundreds. Too many to fit inside any human mouth. Joel screamed. The tiny fingers wrapped around his shirt. Nails burst from the fingertips. Long black claws punched through fabric. Then through flesh. Joel tried to throw it away. It wouldn't let go. The creature clung to him with impossible strength. Its skin rippled. Something moved beneath it. Bones shifting. Muscles growing. Its limbs elongated with sickening cracks. The baby's laugh echoed through the darkness. "Wah!" The cry twisted into a hideous giggle. Then another voice joined it. And another. And another. Joel looked toward the trees. His blood turned to ice. Dozens of glowing red eyes stared back, watching, waiting. More Tianak, an entire nest. The creature in his arms opened its mouth, impossibly wide. Its jaw split down the middle, stretching far beyond human limits. Inside was only darkness, a darkness deeper than the night itself. Then it bit. Its teeth sank into Joel's collarbone. Crunch, bone, shattered. Joel's scream echoed through the forest. The Tianak tore away a chunk of flesh, chewing, happily. Blood sprayed across the mud. The creature laughed. The other eyes in the trees began moving closer, one by one. Tiny shapes emerged from the darkness. Babies, dozens of them, crawling, smiling, their mouths dripping blood. Joel tried to run. Tiny hands grabbed his ankles, his wrists, his throat. More claws, more teeth. The forest filled with childish laughter, a horrible chorus of giggles and feeding sounds. The storm finally returned. Thunder drowned out his screams. By sunrise, all that remained was his tricycle. The engine was still warm, the key still in the ignition. The seat was shredded, covered in deep claw marks. The mud nearby was stained black with dried blood. Villagers found footprints leading toward the forest, tiny, barefoot prints, hundreds of them. Halfway into the trees, the prints changed, growing, larger, longer, more human. Then, they suddenly vanished, as if whatever made them had simply risen into the air. The elders gathered that morning. No one spoke Joel's name. No one searched the forest. Everyone already knew. Because in Sitio Sanggol, the rules are simple. If you hear a baby crying beside the road at night, don't look. If you already looked, don't stop. If you already stopped, don't touch it. And if the crying suddenly ends, pray, because it doesn't mean the baby is gone. It means it's standing right behind you, smiling, waiting for you to turn around.
Which of those creatures would you be most afraid to encounter? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more mythical creature stories from around the world.
Like, subscribe, and comment. Summon Tianak, Krampus, werewolves, and a zombie from the shadows to feed your nightmares.
Sitio Yosi, the capre that watches. The tallest tree in Lagim province wasn't the balete. It was a twisted mango tree standing at the edge of Sitio Yosi. Its branches were so thick they hid the stars. And every night, smoke drifted from its canopy, even when there was no wind. The locals whispered that a capre lived there, eternally smoking a cigar that never burned out. Rico, 12 years old and far too brave for his own good, thought the story sounded ridiculous. A giant who sits in a tree smoking all day? He laughed. That's not scary. His friends exchanged nervous looks. If you're so brave, one challenged, climb the tree and steal his cigar. The others nodded. Bring it back, and we'll never call you a coward again. Rico grinned. Deal. The word hung in the air longer than it should have. Something in the tree heard it. A few nights later, Rico slipped out of his house while his parents slept. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but no rain came. As he approached the mango tree, a strong smell filled the air. Old tobacco, heavy and stale, mixed with something metallic, almost like blood. At the base of the tree, Rico looked up. High among the branches, a single ember glowed, bright, dim, bright again, like something breathing. Kuya capre, Rico whispered, forcing a laugh. I'm coming up. He began to climb. The bark felt strangely warm beneath his hands. Sticky sap oozed from the trunk, dark and thick. The higher he climbed, the quieter everything became. The crickets stopped. The distant dogs fell silent. Even the wind disappeared. Soon the entire world seemed dead and still. Then he heard it, a low chuckle. Not from above, from inside the tree itself. Rico froze. The sound vibrated through the wood beneath his hands. The tree was laughing. He swallowed hard and continued climbing. A few moments later, he pulled himself onto a massive branch and froze. The capre was sitting only a few feet away. Its enormous body blended with the trunk. Its skin looked like burned bark, cracked and blackened. Long ropes of hair hung over its shoulders like moss. Its eyes glowed like dying coals. Between its massive fingers rested a cigar as thick as Rico's arm. The burning tip never grew smaller. Ang tagalmong dumating, the capre rumbled. You took your time. Rico nearly slipped from the branch. You know me? The giant smiled. Its teeth looked like broken stones. You've been calling me for weeks, it said. Every joke, every dare, every time you spoke my name. Rico felt his stomach twist. I only wanted to see if you were real. The capre leaned closer. Its breath smelled of smoke and burned leaves. You wanted proof? Its smile widened. Then stay long enough to stare. The capre lifted its cigar and exhaled. The smoke poured over Rico, but it didn't drift away. It crawled, like living things. The smoke slipped into his nose and ears. It wrapped around his face and burned beneath his skin. Rico coughed and stumbled backward. The branch shifted beneath him. The entire tree groaned, slowly, painfully, as if something enormous inside it was waking up. Terrified, Rico turned to climb down. Then his heart stopped. The branches were different. Paths that had been there moments ago were gone. New branches twisted in impossible directions. The tree had changed. Or perhaps it had always been this way. Far below, the ground had vanished into darkness. The trunk stretched endlessly downward. There was no way back. My dare, the capre said softly, is simple. Its glowing eyes fixed on him. Climb down. Rico scrambled across the bark. His fingers suddenly sank into something soft. Not wood. Something alive. The tree shuddered. Then he saw them. Faces. Dozens of faces trapped beneath the bark. Children. Adults. Missing villagers. Their mouths were frozen open in silent screams. Hands pushed weakly from beneath the wood, reaching toward him, trying to escape. Never succeeding. The smoke filled Rico's lungs. He tried to scream. No sound came out. The bark around him began creeping upward, wrapping around his arms, his legs, his chest. The last thing he saw was the capre, calmly taking another drag from its cigar. The next morning, villagers found Rico's slippers beneath the mango tree. They were still warm. High above, hidden among the leaves, a new shape clung to the trunk, small, child-sized. Its arms stretched downward as if still trying to climb home. Even now, on windless nights, people passing through Sitio Yosi sometimes hear a faint voice trapped within the wood. Ayoko na. I don't want this anymore. Ayoko na. The capre never answers. He simply watches from the branches, smoking, waiting, for the next child who believes his name is only a story. Sitio Kabayo was always covered in fog. Even when the rest of Lagim province was clear, the roads there seemed blurred and distant. The locals said the fog wasn't weather, it was breath. Noel, a city bus driver assigned to a new route, laughed whenever he heard the stories. At the terminal, older drivers warned him, "Leave coins at the crossroads. Ask permission before entering Sitio Kabayo, or the Tikbalang will guide you somewhere you don't want to go." Noel only grinned. "I drive a bus, not a horse cart." At 12:30 a.m., he started his last trip of the night. Only a few passengers were on board, most of them half asleep. As they entered Lagim province, the air turned cold. The windows fogged from the outside. Soon, the road disappeared into a wall of white mist. His GPS lost signal. The highway began twisting through unfamiliar curves. Then Noel noticed something strange. A crooked tree stood beside the road. A few minutes later, he passed it again and again. The same tree, the same broken branch. A woman near the front looked outside. "Driver," she whispered, "haven't we passed that tree already?" Noel didn't answer. Then he saw something ahead. A tall figure standing in the fog. At first, it looked like a tree. Then it moved. The creature stepped into the headlights. Several passengers gasped. It had the body of a man and the head of a horse. Its orange eyes glowed in the darkness. Long limbs hung at unnatural angles. The Tikbalang slowly raised a hand and beckoned. The bus rolled to a stop. The creature stood in the middle of the road, smiling. Behind it was only darkness. No road signs, no trees, no end. "No," the woman whispered. "Turn around." He grabbed the gear shift. It wouldn't move. Panic crept into his chest. Then, the Tikbalang stamped one hoof. Boom! A massive crash exploded above the bus. The entire vehicle shook. Something huge had landed on the roof. Passengers screamed. Metal groaned overhead. A man at the back began praying. Noel slammed his hand onto the horn. Instead of a horn, a horse's scream echoed through the fog. The passengers froze. The overhead clock ticked. 12:45, 12:46, 12:47. Time seemed stuck. Then heavy footsteps moved across the roof. Slow, deliberate. Each step made the bus sink lower. The passengers felt heavier in their seats, as if something was pressing down on them. Noel looked toward the windshield. His heart stopped. A black hoof hung above the glass. Then another. The thing was standing directly on top of the bus. A loud crack echoed through the ceiling. The roof began bending inward. People screamed and covered their heads. Outside, the Tikbalang's grin widened. Its glowing eyes never left Noel. Suddenly, the engine died. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Noel could no longer see the passengers, could no longer see the road. Only those orange eyes remained in the fog, watching, waiting. Then they vanished. The bus never arrived. The next morning, search teams found no wreckage and no tire tracks. Only a circle of giant hoof prints burned into the asphalt near Sitio Kabayo. The prints went nowhere. They simply circled the road. Even today, the elders warn travelers, if the fog becomes so thick that you can no longer see the world outside your windows, do not look out. And if your body suddenly feels heavier, as though something has landed on the roof, do not look at the windshield, because if you see hooves hanging above the glass, you didn't lose the road lost you.
In Sitio Lihim, people apologized to empty spaces. Tabi tabi po, they'd murmur, to ant hills, to crooked roots, to strange little mounds of earth. They didn't always know who they were talking to, only that someone was listening. Everyone did it. Everyone, except Mara. Mara was tired. tired of the mold on their walls, tired of the holes in their roof, tired of watching her mother's hands crack and bleed from washing other people's clothes. She wanted out of poverty, of Sitio Lihim, of Lagim itself. One afternoon, walking home from the river, she took the path under the belate tree. The air there always felt thicker, like walking through someone else's breath. That was when she saw it. Under a twisted root, the soil had swelled into a small, round mound that seemed to pulse, just a little, as if something beneath it was breathing on its own rhythm. On top of it sat a tiny clay pot, perfectly shaped, smooth, and shining despite the dust. It looked like it was waiting. Every instinct in her body whispered, "Say it. Say tabi tabi po. Keep walking." She didn't. She snatched the pot up. The world went quiet. No birds. No river. Even the wind seemed to stop mid-sigh. "Mabigat yan para sayo," a voice whispered right by her ear. "That's heavy for you." Mara spun around. A man no taller than her knee stood on the root. He wore tiny, old-fashioned clothes, a barong, pants, and little leather shoes caked with soil. His skin was the color of stone. His eyes were small, black, and sharp. When he smiled, his teeth were too many for such a small mouth, too sharp, too eager. From the cracks and shadows around the root, other faces peered out, more like him. Watching, unblinking, Mara's heartbeat thudded in her ears. Fear rose up her throat, but greed climbed faster. "Finders keepers," she snapped, hugging the pot to her chest. "It's mine now." The duende's eyes glittered. "Then keep it," he said softly. "We love brave mouths." He stepped backward into the shadows. His body crumbled into dirt, melting into the mound. The small faces around him followed, slipping away like ants into cracks. The sounds of the world came back all at once. Mara ran home. That night, under her thin blanket, she opened the pot. Gold. Not dust, not dirt, but gold. Thick coins, small necklaces, and rings carved with faces she didn't recognize. The metal seemed to glow from inside, a sickly yellow that painted her hands a different color. Mara laughed, silently. With this, they could fix the house, buy land, leave Lagim province, leave the whispers, leave the mounds. Her fingers brushed the last coin. Something icy wrapped around her wrist. Her laughter died in her throat. She looked down. A hand, the size of a child's, gray and cracked, like dried mud, clamped around her arm. Tiny fingers dug in, each nail a little stone. The duende sat on her chest now, heavier than he had any right to be. His little shoes left damp, perfect dirt prints on her skin. Around the bed, lining the wall like an audience, more duende appeared. Small faces, small hands, and all smiling. "Don't forget my price," he said. Mara tried to scream. Her jaw wouldn't move. Her tongue lay in her mouth like stone. The pins and needles feeling began in her fingertips, crawling up her arm like cold water seeping into cloth. It spread to her shoulder, her neck, her skull. The duende leaned closer until his cold nose almost touched hers. "The gold is yours," he whispered. "So are the doors, the windows, the new roof, all the things you wanted to look at." He lifted one finger and tapped her eyelids lightly. "But these," he hissed, "are mine." Everything snapped to black. not the black of closed eyes, a black that lived behind them. Mara woke to her mother's hands on her shoulders, shaking her, voice broken. "Mara, Anik, what's wrong?" Mara opened her eyes. Nothing changed. No light, no shadow, no shape, just a choking, endless absence, pressing in on all sides. She screamed. Not because she couldn't see, because she could feel. Tiny footsteps pattered on the bed around her, circling. Cold fingers patted her cheeks, brushed her hair back, and poked and pressed at her useless eyes beneath their lids. Soft, gravelly giggles echoed near her ears. The gold was real. They used it to fix the roof, to buy medicine, to fill their pantry. Outsiders came, asking how they'd suddenly found money in a place like this. But Mara sat by the window every day, blind gaze turned toward a world she could no longer see. Flies landed on the sill. She never flinched. Sometimes, when the house was very quiet, her mother would see Mara tilt her head, as if listening to someone unseen. Her lips would move, barely, as if answering. At night, when her mother lay awake, she would hear them too. Little feet, like fingers tapping. Small hands, brushing the walls. And tiny voices, laughing softly, like pebbles, grinding together, underground. In Sitio Lihim, they say, the duende are kind. They will give you exactly what you ask for. And then, they'll dig out something you never thought they could reach.
Lagim Province Secret. For years, people tried to leave Lagim Province. They fled the Aswang's shadow, the Tianak's cry, the twisting roads, and the smoking trees. But no matter where they went, they always returned. The same broken store, the same burned hut, the same sign, dead end, turn back. One stormy night, an old woman stood before the great balete tree. She had lost her son, her husband, her sister, and many others to the horrors of Lagim. "Why won't you let us go?" she asked. The shadows moved, wings, hooves, smoke, claws, and suddenly she understood. Lagim Province was not a prison, it was a mirror. The monsters weren't trapped there, they were drawn there by greed, cruelty, fear, and the darkness hidden inside people. The province simply gave those things a body. The next morning, Lagim Province was gone from every map. Yet travelers still speak of a strange road sign appearing in the fog. Lagim Province, 3 kilometers. If you ever see it, remember, don't follow the crying baby. Don't climb the smoking tree. Don't touch the treasure on the mound. Don't answer voices from the dark. And above all, never say their names out loud. Because in Lagim Province, once a monster hears its name, it remembers you. And it may already be standing right behind you.
Which of those creatures would you be most afraid to encounter? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more mythical creature stories from around the world.